Today I'm going to show you Saab 9.3 starter motor replacement for the petrol version. That's the B207. Of course, it's also the same for any other GM car that's got the same engine. Safety first, you know the drill, you know what to do. It'll make life easier if you can get the car as high as you can. Before you do anything else, disconnect the battery. Negative first. If I come in towards the engine bay from this direction, the starter motor comes into view down there. Looking up from underneath, using a 13mm spanner or socket, disconnect the main power lead, and with a 10mm socket on a short extension or a deep 10mm socket, undo the solenoid activation lead. With an E14 socket or a 12.11mm socket on a short extension, undo the lower starter motor bolt. With my spare starter motor sat on the locking platform in roughly the same orientation as the motor in the car down there, there are two bolts that hold the starter motor in position, if you look end on, and both of those bolts are the same type of E14 bolt that you've got on the bottom one. When you're looking to get on there, if you spot and kind of accidentally trying to get onto a large 18mm hex bolt that's just here, that's a bolt that holds the gearbox to the engine. Yes, I did make that mistake. Now this top bolt is very awkward to get at, so let me try and show you how I managed to get at it. I've deliberately overexposed this seam so that you can see down here. The way I got this onto that bolt was by holding it in this hand and going in through this space down here just in front of the engine ECU. Keep the socket under the little 2-wire harness that goes to a connector just above the starter motor. I think it's the crank position sensor, but keep your socket and extension below that and push it into the depth towards where you know that head of that bolt is. Then with your phone on camera mode, switch it to recording video with its backlight on, which acts like a torch. Hold it like so and go down in here, and by waggling around with the with your phone and looking down here at the screen, holding your phone at an angle of about 30 degrees to the vertical, you'll be able to see the end of your socket and where the head is, and you can then use that to guide the socket onto the head, and then once you've got it on, push it on with one of the fingers of your left hand, and holding it onto the head, lay your extension onto the top of the starter motor. Then go in from underneath, and you can add your ratchet wrench to the end of your extension. I then used my crowbar with a flat end against bolt that holds in the manifold bracket as a rest to be able to undo the bolt, because of course when you're using an extension, if you just hold the end of your ratchet, it can wobble around. You would normally hold the top of the extension steady, so I did that by resting my crowbar at this end on that bolt that holds the bracket to the underside of the manifold, and holding this end of the crowbar and resting it against the extension just in the little radius there where the extension widens to attach to the ratchet, and was then able to just get that leverage just to release the torque from the bolt. From down there, from underneath the car, what you could do is press the button on your ratchet handle and use a flat screwdriver in there to lever your ratchet out of the extension. You can get hold of the end of your extension and you can undo the bolt the rest of the way. And yes, it's fiddly and awkward, but with a bit of dexterity and perseverance, a large dollop of perseverance, I have to say, you will eventually get the bolt out. As yet, I haven't yet come up with a method of getting it back in and ensuring it goes back in position, but I'll think about that in a few moments. So keep watching. I'm going to try and find a trick for that. Once you've got the top bolt out, the starter motor is partially loose, and it's an easy matter then to put your extension and socket on the lower bolt and just unwind it out the rest of the way. Just in case you find you need to replace either of these bolts. They're M10 by 40mm long, flange head. Obviously it wouldn't matter what sort of shape head you got on the end there. A hex would do nicely. Putting your replacement motor back in is, of course, as they say in all the best manuals, the reverse procedure to taking it out. But having had so much difficulty with this top bolt, I want to have that put into position. I don't want to have to struggle to get it into position and find the hole for it. So what I'm going to do is put the bolt in position in the hole, just slightly below flush there. And with this UV setting glue that I've got, that we've seen advertised on the internet, I'm putting 4 blobs, north, south, east and west side of the bolt, setting it with the UV light. As I've already discovered, and you've probably seen in one of my headlight videos, I use this for headlight repair, and it may well be very useful for this. And hey presto, the bolt is held into place. So I can now put this back up into the car. I'll put the bottom bolt in, which is easy to do, and then I'll be able to get on that and wind it in with my socket. On the spare motor now, I've got this bolt that fixed into the upper hole. A couple of threads in there. It turns nicely by hand, so I should have no trouble screwing it in. I've given the motor a little bit of a clean down, in particular the connections on the back. I undid that connection there. 13mm socket you'll need. Give the post a good wire brushing. Gave the terminal connection a clean with a bit of sandpaper, and same goes there with that one. And also the cables on the car. Ready to go now, ready to put it in. I've been able to put the motor in from the bottom, no problem whatsoever. Barely took 2 minutes, along with the bottom bolt, which I've left just about half a turn loose, just so that I can make sure I get the motor in the right position with the upper bolt. And I've got my extension and socket onto the upper bolt with exactly the same method as I used for getting it off. So now I'm going to go back underneath and attach the ratchet and tighten it up. When you're down below, reconnecting the leads to the starter motor, be sure not to forget to reconnect both leads, the main power and the trigger lead on the solenoid. Do them up hand tight, clear away your tools from the area obviously, and then reconnect your battery positive first. Always reconnect battery positive first, then your negative. And now, the moment of truth. It works! She turns over vigorously again. If you got value from this video, please like it down by the title. If it's helped to save you a bundle of money doing it yourself instead of going to a garage, consider buying me a coffee, links in description, and I shall see you next time.